My brother-in-law moved in with us and tried to break up my marriage. 2 months later, I uncovered the shocking truth behind his manipulation and had to make a life-altering decision to save my family. I'm a 30-year-old guy, married to my amazing wife, Sarah, who's 29. We've been together for 5 years now, and things have been pretty perfect. We bought our first house together 2 years ago, and we've been really happy. We have a simple, peaceful life. Work, dinner together, weekends full of trips, and spending time with our dog, Buddy. But things changed when my 32-year-old brother-in-law, Jason, called us one evening. We don't really hang out with him that much, but we're on good terms. Jason had always been a bit of a drifter, jumping from job to job and never really settling down. That night, he told Sarah that he was facing some financial struggles and needed a place to stay for a few months. Apparently, his landlord had raised the rent, and he couldn't afford it anymore. I was initially a little apprehensive, but Sarah convinced me that it would be good for Jason. He's family, she said, and he's going through a tough time. I agreed reluctantly. We didn't have any reason to believe anything bad would come of it. So, Jason moved in with us. At first, it was fine. He was on his best behavior, polite, respectful, and not making a fuss. I thought to myself, this won't be so bad. But after a week or two, I started noticing some small things that felt off. Jason would always hang around when Sarah and I had our moments of privacy. He would show up unexpectedly during our meals, while we were watching movies, or we were just talking. I brushed it off, thinking I was just being paranoid, but it felt like he was constantly lingering in the background. And then, he started making subtle comments about our relationship. It wasn't anything direct, but he'd say things like, "Sarah, you're such a great wife. You deserve someone who appreciates you more than he does." Or, "You two should really take more time for each other." I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he was just trying to be supportive, right? But then, I started hearing more. When I'd leave for work, Jason would stay behind and chat with Sarah. And I noticed that after these conversations, Sarah would act distant or withdrawn, almost like she was second-guessing our decisions. I thought I was just imagining things at first. I've always been a bit insecure, but I was starting to feel like Jason was trying to plant doubts in Sarah's mind about our marriage. I didn't want to confront him right away. I didn't want to make things awkward, but it started to feel like something wasn't right. Sarah's attitude towards me changed subtly. She seemed less interested in spending time with me and more focused on hanging out with Jason. The small things we used to do together, cooking dinner, going for walks, watching Netflix, became less frequent. At the same time, Jason started getting more comfortable in the house. He'd leave his stuff lying around, drink my beer from the fridge, and even use my computer without asking. It felt like my space was being invaded. But I didn't say anything because, well, he was family, right? I didn't want to be the bad guy. One evening, I came home a little early from work and overheard Sarah and Jason talking in the kitchen. It wasn't anything unusual, just casual chatter. But what caught my attention was when Jason said, "You know, you've really changed since you got married. You used to be so much more carefree. Maybe you should think about what you want out of this relationship." That was when I felt a pit in my stomach. I didn't know exactly what Jason was trying to do, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was subtly trying to undermine our relationship. It was becoming clear that his presence in our home wasn't just about him needing a place to stay. He was starting to blur the lines of what was acceptable. I tried to talk to Sarah about it, but she brushed it off, saying I was overreacting. "Jason's just trying to help. He's going through a rough patch," she said, as though I was being unreasonable. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. At this point, I was in a tough spot. I didn't want to cause trouble in my marriage, but I couldn't ignore the way Jason was starting to make me feel uncomfortable. I wasn't the kind of person who confronted others easily, but this was my marriage we were talking about, and I wasn't about to let it slip away because of some family drama. Little did I know, this was just the beginning. As the days went by, Jason's behavior became harder to ignore. It wasn't just that he was constantly around. It was how his presence started affecting our dynamic as a couple. Little by little, he began to insert himself into our private moments, almost as if he was trying to take a position of authority in our home. The more I thought about it, the more it felt like he was trying to drive a wedge between Sarah and me. One evening, Sarah and I were sitting on the couch, enjoying some quiet time together, when Jason walked in without knocking. "Hey, you guys doing okay?" he asked casually, as if he hadn't just barged into our intimate moment. I could tell Sarah was a little thrown off, but she quickly put on a smile and invited him to join us. I tried to be polite, but honestly, I was getting frustrated. Jason started talking about random stuff, but what got me was how he kept redirecting the conversation towards my relationship with Sarah. "You know," Jason said, "relationships need space. You need to make sure you're giving each other time to grow and evolve. You can't just be stuck in your routines forever." The words hit me like a ton of bricks. He was giving advice about our relationship. I felt my anger rising, but I didn't want to make a scene. I just nodded, trying to keep my cool. But what really bothered me was how Sarah responded. Instead of backing me up, she seemed to agree with Jason. "Yeah, maybe we do need to take more time for ourselves," she said thoughtfully, glancing at me. That was when the first real crack in our relationship appeared. We hadn't fought or argued about anything serious, but it felt like the small, subtle comments were starting to add up. I couldn't help but wonder if Jason was planting seeds of doubt in Sarah's mind. The next few days, I noticed something else. Jason began to give Sarah advice on little things: how she should decorate the house, what kind of food she should cook, how she should manage her work-life balance. It was getting ridiculous. He was acting like he had a say in everything. And Sarah, for her part, started taking his words more seriously. One night, after we had dinner together, Sarah asked me, "Why don't you listen to my ideas more often? Jason has some really good suggestions about how we can improve things around here." I was shocked. Jason's not the one who should be running our household, I said, my voice a little sharper than I intended. But Sarah just shrugged it off, saying, "I'm not saying you should, but he has good ideas. I think we should listen to him more." That was the moment I realized how deep this was going. Jason had somehow managed to position himself as an expert on my marriage and my life. It was like he was slowly replacing me as the man of the house, and it terrified me. I began questioning whether Sarah was truly seeing me as her partner or if she was being swayed by Jason's influence. The more I observed their interactions, the more I noticed how they would speak in private, away from me, about personal matters. I wasn't included in those discussions, and it felt isolating. There were times when I felt completely left out. I'd come home from work, and they'd be sitting together, laughing about something I wasn't even aware of. When I asked what was going on, they'd just brush it off as nothing. It felt like I was being slowly edged out of my own home. I tried talking to Sarah about how I was feeling, but she always dismissed my concerns. "Jason's just trying to help," she'd say. "He's family, and he only wants what's best for us." But I knew it wasn't just about him helping. He was trying to take over, slowly but surely. Then, one evening, it all came to a head. Sarah and I had planned a quiet night together, just the two of us. But, as usual, Jason showed up uninvited. He had this air about him, like he was entitled to be there. "What's the plan for tonight?" he asked, sitting down without waiting for an invitation. Sarah smiled at him, then glanced at me with a slight shrug. "We were thinking of watching a movie. Maybe we could all hang out together." I could feel my frustration bubbling over, but I kept it inside. It wasn't about the movie or even Jason's presence anymore. It was the fact that Sarah didn't see anything wrong with the way things were going. To her, this was just normal, and that scared me. I knew I couldn't keep ignoring what was happening. Jason wasn't just staying with us because he had nowhere else to go. He was slowly infiltrating every part of our lives. And I was starting to wonder if he had an ulterior motive. It all came crashing down on a quiet Sunday afternoon. I had been feeling uneasy for weeks, but that day, everything I had been suspecting came to light. I had no idea how close we were to the truth, but that afternoon would change everything. It started like any other day. I was at work, and Sarah had planned to run some errands. I didn't think much of it. Jason had been spending more time with her lately, and I'd started to notice little things that were hard to ignore. He was always giving her advice about everything, from how she should handle her job to what she should wear. I began to feel like I wasn't the one in control of my own life anymore. But what really made me start questioning everything was an unexpected call I received from a mutual friend, Mark. Mark and I had been friends for years, and we'd always kept in touch. He called me out of the blue, and his voice was filled with urgency. "Hey man, I need to talk to you about something," he said. "It's about Jason." My stomach dropped. Mark had always been the kind of friend who didn't sugarcoat things, so I knew something serious was coming. "What about him?" I asked, bracing myself. "Look, I don't want to get involved in family drama, but I think you need to know the truth. Jason has been telling people that he's been trying to break you and Sarah up on purpose," Mark said, almost in disbelief. My heart sank. I couldn't process what I was hearing. "What? Why would he do that?" Mark sighed. "He thinks Sarah deserves better than you. He's been telling people that you're not good enough for her, that you're holding her back. He even talked about it at the bar last week." I didn't think it was serious, but now I'm starting to realize it is. "Jason is trying to get her to leave you, man." I could barely breathe. It felt like the ground had been ripped out from beneath me. Jason, the man I had welcomed into my home, had been trying to destroy my marriage from the inside. I couldn't believe it. The person I thought was family, who I had opened my doors to, was now conspiring behind my back. I hung up the phone. I was in shock. Jason had been pretending to be the supportive brother-in-law, while secretly plotting to drive a wedge between Sarah and me. And what made it worse was that I had no idea how long this had been going on. When I got home that night, Sarah was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. Jason was in the living room, watching TV. I walked in, my mind racing with a million thoughts, but I knew I had to confront him. I couldn't let this go any longer. My marriage was on the line. "Jason," I said, my voice shaking with anger. "We need to talk." He turned around, a confused look on his face. "What's going on, man?" I took a deep breath. "Why have you been telling people that you're trying to break up my marriage? Why have you been telling Sarah that I'm not good enough for her?" Jason's face changed immediately. His casual demeanor vanished, and for the first time, I saw a hint of guilt in his eyes. But he tried to play it off. his tone defensive. What are you talking about? I never said that. I could feel my blood boiling. Mark told me everything. He overheard you talking about how you've been trying to get Sarah to leave me. Is that what you've been doing this whole time? Pretending to be family while you're sabotaging everything I've worked for? Jason shifted uncomfortably on the couch. He avoided eye contact, clearly trying to come up with an excuse. Look, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was just trying to help her. You don't understand her like I do. She deserves someone who truly values her. That hit me hard. He wasn't even ashamed of what he had been doing. He genuinely believed that I wasn't worthy of Sarah and that I didn't understand her. It was as if I had been the one in the wrong all along. I turned to Sarah, who had quietly entered the room during our conversation. Is this true? I asked her, my voice breaking. Had you been listening to him? Have you been letting him make you doubt me? Sarah stood there in silence, her face a mixture of confusion and guilt. I didn't know. I thought he was just trying to help, and I didn't realize how much it was affecting you, she said, looking down. It felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. The betrayal I felt was overwhelming. Jason had manipulated Sarah into questioning me and our marriage, all under the guise of helping. And Sarah, for her part, had been too trusting to see it. You need to leave, Jason, I said, my voice steady but firm. I don't know what your game is, but you've caused enough damage. I'm not going to let you destroy my family. Jason didn't argue. He didn't apologize. He just looked at me with that same smug expression before finally standing up and walking out the door, leaving me and Sarah in the aftermath of his deception. The moment Jason walked out the door, it felt like a weight had been lifted off my chest, but at the same time, I was consumed by anger, disbelief, and hurt. I thought I knew my brother-in-law, but what I had just learned made me realize I had no idea who he truly was. And now, I had to figure out how to move forward, how to fix the damage that had been done to my marriage. The silence in the house was deafening. I stood there, trying to process everything that had just happened. I felt betrayed, not only by Jason, but by Sarah too. I had always trusted her completely, and to think that she had been so influenced by Jason's words hurt more than I cared to admit. Sarah was still standing there, her face pale. She looked at me, then quickly looked away, clearly unable to meet my gaze. She hadn't said much during the confrontation with Jason, and I wasn't sure how to proceed. But I couldn't let this go without talking about it. Our marriage was on the line, and I needed to know if we could still work through this. Sarah, I said, my voice quieter now, we need to talk, you and me, about everything. She nodded, walking over to the couch where we had sat so many times before in better days. I sat down next to her, though there was an emotional distance between us that felt impossible to bridge. I know this is hard to understand, she said, her voice shaky. I didn't realize what Jason was doing. I thought he was just being supportive. He's my brother, and I've always trusted him. I get that, I replied, though my frustration was still bubbling under the surface. But how could you not see what he was doing? How could you not see that he was manipulating you? We've been married for years, Sarah. I thought you knew me. I thought you trusted me. She looked down, her eyes filled with tears. I do trust you, but when Jason started telling me things, it made me question myself. He was convincing, and she trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I never meant to hurt you. I know you didn't mean to, but you did, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. And what hurts the most is that you let him get inside our marriage. You let him make you doubt me. It's like I wasn't enough for you anymore. The words stung, but they were the truth. I couldn't hide the way I was feeling, and I couldn't pretend that everything was okay. The betrayal ran deep, and I needed to understand if we could move forward from this. I know, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I don't know why I didn't see it sooner. I was so caught up in his words, in everything he said. I thought I was just being a good sister by listening to him. But I see now that I let him manipulate me. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I don't know what to say, Sarah. I love you, but I don't know if I can just forgive you for this. It feels like I've been betrayed by both of you. She reached for my hand, her grip desperate. Please don't say that. I know I messed up, and I understand why you're hurt. I never wanted this. I love you, and I don't want to lose what we have. I pulled my hand back, feeling conflicted. I did love her, but the pain I was feeling from her actions was hard to ignore. I had always been the one to make the tough decisions in our relationship, but now I was the one facing a choice that would determine whether we could move past this. We need time, Sarah, I said, my voice low. I can't just forget what happened. It's not going to be easy to rebuild the trust we had. I don't know if I can just let it go. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll give you space. Please don't give up on us. I felt my heart breaking as I looked at her. I knew that I still loved her, but love alone wasn't enough to fix the cracks that had formed between us. Jason had been the catalyst, but this was bigger than just him. It was about us, our communication, and how we had let things slip into disarray. I don't know what the future holds, I said quietly, but I think we both need some time to figure things out. We can't rush this. We need to rebuild trust, and that takes work." She nodded again, wiping her tears away. "I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you." I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation settling heavily on my shoulders. This wasn't just about confronting Jason anymore. It was about whether Sarah and I could overcome the damage that had been done. "Let's take it one step at a time," I said, finally feeling like I was in control of the situation again. "We need to work on this. We need to communicate better. And we need to make sure that no one, not even family, can come between us again." As I spoke, I realized that I wasn't ready to give up on us. I wasn't ready to let Jason or anyone take away what we had. But I also knew it wasn't going to be easy. Rebuilding a relationship after betrayal was never simple. It was going to take time, patience, and a lot of hard conversations. But for now, all we could do was try. It's been 2 months since Jason left. And while I wish I could say everything's back to normal, I can't. In fact, it feels like we're just starting the real work now. But we're trying, and for the first time in a long while, it feels like there's a glimmer of hope for us. After Jason left that night, things were tense in the house. We didn't immediately jump back into a normal routine. We both knew there was a lot of damage to repair, not just because of what Jason had done, but because we had let things get to this point. I'll admit, I was angry. I didn't want to be angry with Sarah, but I couldn't help it. The trust we had built over the years was shattered, and it wasn't something that could be fixed overnight. We decided to go to couples therapy, something we probably should have done sooner. Sarah suggested it, and at first, I hesitated. I didn't think a stranger could fix what was broken between us. But as we sat down together with the therapist, it became clear that we both needed an outlet, someone to help us navigate all the hurt and confusion we were feeling. The first few sessions were hard. We cried a lot. I'm not the type of guy who shows a lot of emotion, but in that room, I felt vulnerable. I talked about how betrayed I felt, how much it hurt to see Sarah pulled away from me by someone I considered family. And Sarah opened up too. She admitted how guilty she felt for letting Jason get so close to our lives, how she let his influence cloud her judgment. It wasn't easy to hear, but I could see that she was truly sorry. It wasn't just about her apologizing, though. It was about the fact that she was willing to do the hard work, too. We both had to understand that healing wasn't a quick fix. It was a process. Over the weeks that followed, we took small steps toward rebuilding our relationship. We started talking more, really talking, instead of just coexisting. We spent time together, just the two of us, doing things we loved before the chaos. Cooking dinner, walking around the neighborhood, and even binge-watching our favorite shows on the couch. It wasn't easy to get back to where we were, but every little moment felt like a small victory. We also began to set boundaries. Sarah and I'd always been close to our families, but after everything that had happened, we needed to take a step back. We couldn't just let people, even family, interfere in our relationship. We made it clear to Sarah's parents and other relatives that Jason wasn't welcome at our home for a while. It wasn't easy, but I couldn't risk him causing any more harm. It took some time, but Sarah and I started to feel like we were on the same team again. There were days when it felt like the weight of the betrayal was too much to bear, but I realized that the only way through it was together. And Sarah, despite everything, was still the person I loved. Eventually, we had a conversation about Jason. I want to know if she was still in contact with him, if she'd forgiven him for what he did. To my surprise, she admitted that she hadn't spoken to him since he left. She didn't know how to face him, and honestly, she didn't want to. She said that seeing how far he was willing to go to manipulate her made her realize that family isn't always about blood. Trust and respect were more important than any family bond. That was the turning point for me. I realized that Sarah had learned from this experience. She wasn't blindly trusting anymore, and neither was I. We were rebuilding not just trust in each other, but trust in ourselves. We had both made mistakes, but we were committed to learning from them. A few weeks later, Sarah reached out to Jason. She didn't tell me about it first, and I'll admit, I was a little nervous. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about her reconnecting with him, but I knew she needed closure. When she came back from that conversation, she told me that it didn't go as she expected. Jason apologized for what he had done, but felt empty to her. She realized that the person she thought she knew wasn't the person he really was. In the end, Jason didn't need to be a part of our lives. Sarah and I agreed that he had done too much damage, and our family, our marriage, came first. We both felt stronger for it. As I write this now, I can say that we're in a better place. We still have a long way to go, and the scars are there. But I think that's what makes us stronger. We went through something that could have torn us apart, and instead, we're learning to rebuild brick by brick. I'm not sure what the future holds for us, but for the first time in months, I'm hopeful. We've been through hell, but together, we're finding our way back. And that's all that matters.